Hi everyone, welcome to Live from our library, and this month we are looking at children's books that honor Hispanic Heritage Month. So I want to also say bienvenidos to everyone, and I've got a lot of different things here for you, some of them in English, some of them in Spanish, some of them bilingual, but I wanted to start off by sharing a little bit with you from our Kids and Family Reading Report. This year, when we did our overall research, we were able to pull out some of the data that we found to see what some of the reading habits and interests were for Hispanic parents and their children. And one of the things that we found was that young Hispanic children are more likely to be frequent readers, enjoy reading books for fun, and find reading to be an important activity from the overall survey. But on average, they have fewer books in the home. So hopefully as we go through our list today, we'll be able to share with you some ideas for books that you can pull into the home and share with your children. And overall, in the entire study, not just Hispanic children, but all children, one of the things that we notice is that there's kind of a disconnect where children are more likely than their parents to say that they have trouble finding books that they like. So that is one of our goals as we've been going through this, and hopefully will help you to become a resource and just recognize that while it may seem that your kid doesn't have too much trouble finding different kind of stories, in fact, they may be struggling a little bit more. And also, always look for your school librarian, public librarian to get ideas for different things. So I've got my list here. And some of the things that I have here are from, I should say, our Scholastic and Espanol line, which is where we have some of the titles that we publish and that we also distribute through clubs that are translated into Spanish. And we also have a reading club called Club Leo, or Club Leo, if I'm pronouncing it right. And that is a entire flyer that children can bring home that offer books that are bilingual, and they're also in the Spanish language. So I have as a favorite to start off with, I've got a couple favorites, but this first one I wanted to show you was recommended to me by the editor of Club Leo, and it's called Sabores de America. And one of the things that's fun about this one, I'm going to see if I can open this poster up and get it on the screen for you. So there's the book. It is by Ana Maria Pavez y Constanza Ricard, Ilustraciones de Isabel Rojas. And it has all kind of different foods that come from all over the Americas. So sabores, flavors of Latin America. So I may be a little bit out of the camera angle, but you can kind of get an idea. You see the map there on the top. And then on the bottom, they've got all the different countries and different foods that are, from that particular country originally. And so some of my favorites, obviously, I love avocado and chocolate and all kind of different things that you may see there and recognize if you like. So this was a cool book and poster that was put together. That's a favorite. Right. And then another favorite I have here is one of Raina Telgemeier's stories. Now, each of her graphic novels has been translated, and then this one is the most recent, Ghosts and Fantasmas is the title that we have here. And so I shall share that title with you. All right, so we're going to go through the age bands, and starting off with board books and early education. Hopefully you can see that. Yep. All right, so the first one that I've got is the book that's called The Season, Las Estaciones. And throughout the book, it employs what we like about board books, with repetition, but it also has lines in English and Spanish. So you can see it says, let's pick apples and pumpkins. Vamos a recoger manzanas y calabazas. Fall is fun. El otoño es divertido. Right? And then let's play in the snow. Vamos a jugar en la nieve. Winter is fun. El invierno es divertido. So as you kind of go through and repeat, they'll start to learn that the word divertido is for fun, right? And play is jugar. So it's a fun one with beautiful illustrations. And the author on this is Yaria Valorsi. That's one that I've gone through. This one, next one that I have is called Nosotros by Paloma Valdivia. And illustrations, with the picture books, I like to show what it looks like on the inside. And much like the other one, you have an opportunity to find this book in English and Spanish. This particular book, the entire book, is in Spanish. And so that's that one by Paloma. And then I've got Clifford, the collection, but in Spanish, Clifford la Colección. And it's got all of the first 6 stories from Clifford. We have this book available in English also. I'm going to show you that. Our beloved Clifford. I have that one. It's a book that you could share with young readers. And then this one, I don't know why I have 2 copies. These are both sitting here with me. This one is called ABC a la Moda, right? And Moda, fashion. So the ABCs of fashion is illustrated by Simone Massoni. Right? And so this book, an alphabet book, right? As you go through it, it shows you the words in English and Spanish, right? So A es para arete, earrings. B es para bañador, swimsuit. Right? And so as you go through the letters, and you get all the letters, the alphabet, you get one word that has to do with fashion or clothing, and then you get the English translation. Right? Beautifully, beautifully illustrated book. All right, so that is what I've got for board books. All right, next level that we've got is pre-K to 2nd grade. All right. I remind you that this list is going to be posted on Scholastic Parents on the Raise a Reader blog. And for K1 and 2, the first one that I've got is Tia Isa Wants a Car. And so in this case, I pulled 2 different copies that we have of the book, one that's in English and one that's been translated to Spanish. And this book is by Meg Medina, illustrated by Claudio Munoz. And in this story, you have a aunt, Tia, that's the word for aunt, who is saving up to buy a car. She's also saving money to send to her family. And her niece wants to help her out with this. And so she does different things throughout the neighborhood to help to save for a car. And at the end of the story, they go and they buy a car. I'll show you a couple of pictures. This is a picture where they finally are out in a car that they're able to get. You can see it on the cover. But also, they have in the back, it says for the real Tia Isa. And then you can see a picture. I don't know if that's easy to see or not. But you can see a picture of her aunt with a blue car. You see the inspiration for the story. Yeah, so that one. Right there. And then I've got a series here, Eric E. Julieta. These are some picture books. There are several in the series. The one that we have on the list is this first one here. Eric and Julieta goes to school. Julieta va a la escuela. And it's by Isabel Munoz and Gustavo Mazzali. And then the second one that I pulled out for you to see is El Mejor, the best. And then the third one that I've got here from that series, La Obra de Teatro, the school play. And then, also for K1 and 2, this is one. Oh, come on in.
Hello.
Yay. Come have a seat.
Thank you so much.
All right. Oh, folks, this is Marielle.
Nice to meet
Introduce
you.
yourself.
How are you? Hola.
And Marielle is the editor that I was mentoring from Club Leo.
Right.
And tell them real quickly what you do.
So I go through a lot of different lists from publishers from Latin America and Europe and the US that have the best selection of Latino authors and other voices. And we translate those books into Spanish or bilingual format to allow for any family to be able to practice Spanish or learn more about these cultures. So I really like what I do. It's really fun.
Okay. And I thought it would be fun to bring in a practitioner so that you get a sense of some of the different things. So far we've gone through some of the early readers. I was just about to talk about this one.
Great.
Have you read this one? You want to
Yes,
do it?
we have the audio CD.
Yeah.
So.
I'll let you want to talk about it?
Yes. So I think that the main objective of the book is to talk a little bit about how to speak up your mind and, organize community and I like the art a lot because it feels very folksy to me, and it's very eye-catching. And when you listen to the audiobook, you can also sort of listen to the music in the background, and it takes you to the place where it takes. It's a lot of fun.
Okay.
So
I should mention that this is by Carmen Agraditi and illustrated by Eugene Yelchin. And the title is The Rooster Who Would Not Be Quiet.
Yeah.
And then in Spanish, it's, what's it?
Es El Gallo Que No Se Callaba. And I should also add that it's not only in Spanish, but bilingual, which maybe you mentioned. But that allows also for people when they listen to the CD to listen to the pronunciation in Spanish in case someone wants to practice.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. All right. So we are moving over to that was K1 and 2, and then I think that this middle grade one is the one where I've lost my sign. So for 3, 4, and 5, I've got right here for you. Emma is on the air, Showtime, and Emma está al aire.
Emma está en el aire, yeah.
Al baile. So I'll show you this. So this is one of our early chapter books that we have for the 3, 4, 5 age range, and you can see that we make the story available in both languages. So this book is something that's been translated, and there are other ones in the series. I want to share that. I have not read it yet, so describe it too well. But then I found this downstairs. I wanted to bring out. This is a book that we published a while ago when we've reprinted. It's got myths, legends, and folk tales from Latin America. It's called Golden Tales by Lulu de Lacra. And what I thought was wonderful about this one is that it has stories from different parts of Latin America. So I'm just going to list some of the stories that are in the table of contents. You've got How the Sea Was Born, a Taino myth. Guanina, a Puerto Rican legend. The 11,000 Virgins, a Puerto Rican legend. The Laughing Skull, a Dominican legend. Cencion, the Indian Girl, a Cuban folktale. When the Sun and the Moon Were Children, a Chatino myth. How the Rainbow Was Born, a Zapotec myth. The Miracle of Our Lady of Guadalupe, a Mexican legend. El Dorado, a Colombian legend. Manco Capac and the Rod of Gold, an Inca Quechua myth. Cacuy, what is that?
Cacuy.
Quechua folktale from Bolivia, and The Courier, also from Bolivia. So what was nice about this one is that I was looking through my list and I realized that we didn't have a whole lot that was nonfiction, but a lot of times folk tales and fairy tales and myths and legends are actually considered nonfiction because they're kind of origin stories for different cultures. And so this was just an exciting one that I was able to bring out. And then I don't have a copy of the book, but I thought maybe you could talk to us about the day Maria lost her voice.
Yes, that book, I would love for people to be familiar with the background story. The theme is just this girl who doesn't know how to listen to others, and she's constantly talking, and one day she loses her voice in a comical way. It's a very humorous, humor-infused book. And the author is actually Mexican, and he wrote it in Spanish. And what we're doing is a very special thing, which is to take his original book and translate it into English. So usually you get books in English translated into Spanish, but this time we are translating an originally written book into English, and we're going to redo the art. We're going to have beautiful images from a Mexican award-winning illustrator. And I think it's just great because the book will be in bilingual format, and it's sort of like a chapter book, I would say. And it's more common to have bilingual picture books, but to actually make a bilingual book for grades 3rd and 4th, it's pretty special. So I'm excited about that book.
And who's the author?
The author is Javier Peñalosa. He won the 2017 Best Mexican Poetry Award. He's actually studying now in Europe with a scholarship, so he's become very recognized, and I love to bring someone with that level of international recognition to Scholastic.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'll talk to you a little bit later. I have a book that I'm trying to read in English and Spanish.
Okay.
Right? So we're going to see if we have any questions. All right, so Melissa Vasquez is asking, are these books available on CD as well?
So I mentioned The Rooster, Del Gallo. That one is in CD, and the ones you presented, Eric y Julieta, those we also have now in a CD version, and Tia Isa we also have in a CD, Spanish and English CDs. They are all, they have a soundtrack with music, and they're like really cool to listen to.
And then I went over this one, ABC a la Moda.
Oh, wonderful.
And I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit more about this one.
Yes, sure. So Nosotros was born when I met Paloma in Mexico. She's from Chile originally, and her son had just been born, and she wanted to write sort of like a bedtime story, but the message is very special. Because it's all about the moment when the mother and the son, in life, each one takes its own path, and then they recognize themselves later in life, and they ask, "Who are you?" Then they know it's them. But it's all done through like a magical realism type of metaphor, in which they play that they become animals, and he's sort of like a magical creature or something. And then you go back to the time when she's reading him the tale, and they imagine that they are just part of the animal kingdom. Yeah, so I love her art, and it's her first time published in the US, so it's really great.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations, Paloma.
Yeah, so all right, put this back. I'm trying to keep them in order. All right, so far we've gone through pre-K, K1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, and now we're going to move into some books that are for older readers.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so I have, and I actually, most of these I've read, I think.
Okay.
And some of these books are ones that have brought tears to my eyes recently, in a good way. So the first ones that I have is the most recent one that I read, Before We Were Free, by Julia Alvarez. And this book, I found myself, staying up all night trying to finish it so that I would know what happened. Although I do know what happened because it's based on true history in the Dominican Republic. And the young woman in the story, she is about 11 or so, maybe going on 12, and her family is very involved, the men in her family in particular, in trying to deal with the dictator who's ruling the country, Trujillo. And they are, kind of plotting and meeting and trying to hide from the police and all kind of things. And she is gradually becoming more aware of what is going on around her. And her family ends up, having to hide for a little while and having to travel to the United States. And she comes, spends time in Queens, which is where I'm from. And I love Julia Alvarez's writing. This won the Pura Belpré Award, and it was just like a really fun one for me. And I'm going to mention another one of books a little later. If you have any questions, remember to put them down in the comment area so that we can answer them. The second one I have here by Sonia Manzano, The Revolution of Evelyn Serrano, also a favorite, because when I read this, I felt embarrassed that I didn't know about what was going on in Spanish Harlem in 1969, that summer. And so, reading through it, it had a lot of things that were familiar about New York City, but you have a young woman who also is kind of coming of age. And in this case, she's the one who's really trying to get involved in the movement and everything that's going on. There's a group of young men, let me make sure I get it right, because I believe it's the Young Lords. And they are kind of trying to start a breakfast program, trying to get more Puerto Rican history taught and stuff like that. And there's a moment where they end up taking over the church and stuff like that. There's times where they were setting garbage on fire on Park Avenue because they were protesting the fact that the garbage wasn't getting picked up regularly in their neighborhood. And it's just really well written. Some of you may remember Sonia Manzano's name. She recently wrote a memoir, and she was Maria from Sesame Street. For many years, her memoir is called Becoming Maria. So as you can tell, I really enjoyed that. That also won the Belpré Award. Got some award winners here. And then, have you read this one, right?
Yeah, Esperanza.
Okay. The English and the Spanish.
I love the cover.
Yeah. This cover is beautiful. I'll hold it up a little closer as you can see. This is the hardcover. It has medals on it. The Jane Addams Children's Book Award and the Pura Belpré. And it's by Pamela Munoz Ryan. Do you want to describe it?
Yeah, I was thinking of reading a little sentence or two that I really like from the beginning. In Spanish, maybe.
Yeah.
So it says, Nuestra tierra está viva, Esperanza, dijo papá. mientras la llevaba de la pequeña mano por las suaves colinas del viñedo. So that's the opening scene, as you know, in the English edition, where her father is taking her through the vineyards, and it's a lot about the land. I think that Pan Muñoz Ryan really recreated the experience of, you know, Mexicans and Latinos being connected to the land and coming into the U.S. and, you know, becoming an immigrant. And I am not sure, this is a fun fact, but maybe everyone knows, Esperanza means hope in Spanish.
Oh, okay, espero.
Esperanza,
yeah.
right. So, you know,
Espero.
I think it captures this idea that, you know, it's a beautiful name, and it's a very, very common experience, that, you know, like you come here, you have hope and you know, the best wishes, so.
Yeah, and I'm very excited about this book because this is a book that Scholastic published, I think in 99 or 2000. So the book has been, it's, you know, a lot of kids read it in school. In fact, just this weekend, I've been talking about this book at work a lot, and my niece had it sitting on her homework pile, a beat up copy of it. It had number 15 on it. It was her classroom copy. And she's in, I think, 5th grade now, and that is what she's reading. And so it was just exciting that this is something that I'm talking about at work, and everybody's still excited about. Of course, all of Pam's work we're very excited about. But just to see it kind of like driven home by this weekend. And so I took a picture of it. I'll try to maybe put it up on my Instagram or Twitter or something like that. And if we haven't described what it's about, early on, Esperanza is living in Mexico, and then her father dies. He passes away, and then they end up having to leave where they are. Her mother can't really, as a woman, even if they own the house, but they don't own the land, and her uncles are kind of like scary guys, and they end up traveling to the United States. So she kind of goes from living a life of luxury to experiencing what it's like to have to work a little bit harder and take care of people. She learns things like cooking and taking care of babies and changing and stuff like that. And I think the editor, when I talked to her about it, she described it as riches to rags to riches of another sort. Yeah, right? It's like a kind of a Cinderella story. So this is a beautiful, beautiful time.
Yeah. You also won the Pura del Prayer, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yes. You have all the award winnings.
Okay, there's a reason, because they're really good. Okay, so that, we should have, the whole time, had this sign right there. All right, and so now we're going to switch to high school, 9th through 12th grade. My intern made these signs this summer.
Okay.
All right, and so then I've got some favorites here. Well, let's see. I'll start with this one, because this is another one that made me cry. Did you get a chance to read it yet?
Not yet, but she gave me a copy and I haven't.
I know.
Thank you so much.
I constantly give Marielle homework because I see a book and I'm like, oh, this would be great, translated and share with everybody. So this one is called The Disappeared, and it's by Francisco X. Stork. He's the author of Marcelo in the Real World, which is an excellent title. And when it starts off, you have two perspectives. One is a boy who is about 16, and then his sister who is in her early 20s. And so sometimes you will have a YA story that has somebody that's in her early 20s. And she is working at a newspaper. She's a journalist, and she's been talking a lot about her friend who disappeared, and a lot of the young women that have disappeared. She lives in Juarez. And she gets a threat. I'm not ruining the story, but early on she gets a threat that says, you need to stop writing about the desaparecidas, or else we're going to harm your family, and I'll let you, gather that she does not, stop that. And then it ends up affecting her whole family. And, her brother, meanwhile, is going through his own journey, and it alternates going back and forth between them. So, excellent story. Found myself tearing up, as I often do with Francisco's work. And then this one, I just stayed up till 1:30 in the morning last night reading. It's called Life After by Sarah Dara Littman. And I was surprised. Some of the other books that she's written, I didn't know that where this book was going to, go in this direction. It's set in Argentina. And you may know that after World War II, there were a lot of Jewish families that went all over the globe to different places. So this one is set in a Jewish community in Argentina, and it's right after 9/11. So she's very aware of the fact, the young woman who the story's about, she's very aware of the fact that 9/11 just happened because there was a terrorist attack on a Jewish community center when she was turning 7 years old, and her aunt passed away in it. So, and again, much like when I was reading The Revolution of Evelyn Serrano, you learn something from history that you're like, I should have known that already, but I didn't. And her family ends up leaving Argentina because things become very difficult financially. The family loses their store and stuff. Her father is getting depressed. And they end up moving to the United States, where she has to go to school, and she's taking ESL classes. She can speak English pretty well, but she's really learning all of the different expressions, idiomatic expressions and figures of speech. And she befriends a young man who has Asperger's syndrome, because one of the things they have in common, aside from the fact that they're different from everyone around them in a way, is that they both have trouble with the figures of speech, so when somebody says
like metaphors.
Yeah, there's a line like, somebody says like, so she wears her heart on her sleeve, and they're like, what?
Right.
What does that mean? That doesn't make any sense.
My
Things
favorite
like
is
that.
touch base. When someone told me that the first time,
Yeah.
we have to touch base. It just was confusing because physically touch base.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you manage? That's great.
So she starts to keep a list for herself of the different expressions that she can understand.
That.
Yeah. So I was really impressed with this one and enjoyed it, and stayed up last night to get it done. And then the last one that I have here for high school is Shadow House Fall by Daniel Jose Older. Just came out recently. Don't tell Daniel that I didn't read it yet. It's on my list. I'm very excited about this book. I could talk at length about the first book. I think that I've explained it to you before, but it's set in Brooklyn, and you've got a young Afro-Latina heroine. It's a fantasy story, and she kind of figures out how to save the world using her culture. All of the murals in the first book are starting to come alive. People are starting to disappear, and she saves the day at the end of the book. And then now we get into the second book, which gets a lot into the politics of what's going on right now in the world, and continues to talk about the politics locally in New York, gentrification, and things like that, but then also just the larger movements and political conversations that are going on. So Shadow House Fall, the second book in the Shadow Cipher, Daniel Jose Older. All right, and then let's see if we have any questions. Check real quick. All right, so Maria Roca wants to know, she says she's interested in recorded dual language books with prompts in other languages, 0 to 6th grade as well. She organizes parent and child reading, storytelling gatherings throughout our very diverse immigrant neighborhood. Where can I locate your offerings? Who can I contact at Scholastic? So dual language books with prompts. Where can she locate our offerings? Let's start with that.
Well, if you want to post the webpage of the reading clubs, maybe that's a good start. But I'm also always happy to get an email from anybody and answer. So yeah.
Is there an email address for Club Leo specifically?
I can give it to you and maybe post it in the comments.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Oh. But thank you. I'm impressed. That's like great work, actually.
Yeah. And then Scholastic and Espanol, is there a spot on the Scholastic site where somebody can find those titles specifically?
If you go to the main webpage of reading clubs, basically all of the Scholastic and Espanol titles under that imprint are in Club Leo. So the best way to buy them is through Club Leo.
All right. And then I think that for the most part, maybe we can we'll find, if you look in the Scholastic store online and also in the trade catalog and stuff like that, we can see if there is like a specific link that we can put under your question, Maria, that shows all of the things that we have available, and we can figure out how to get you the flyer so that you can, generally the flyers go out through teachers at the schools, and so you want to see if your children's classroom teacher is somebody who's already involved in reading clubs, and then maybe that's an additional flyer that they can get. All right, let's see if there are any others. Okay. Thank you for that question and your work. Yes, and we're going to have the list posted on scholastic.com /parents, and the blog is called Raise a Reader. All right, so then the last things that we have after high school are adult. And let's see, I don't have the one that I want to talk about. I don't have a copy of it. I think it's packed in a box at my house. My favorite. I mentioned Julia Alvarez before. One of my favorite books that I've ever read by her is In the Time of the Butterflies, which is also set in the Dominican Republic, and older characters. It's an adult book, and you get introduced to these sisters who over time were called the Butterflies. I believe that there were 4 sisters.
The Mirabal sisters.
Yeah, and that there were 3 that were very active, and one who was, she became active later. But if you know the story of the sisters, they became, part of the resistance movement against Trujillo. And one of the ways that they were kind of dealt with was that their husbands were incarcerated, and so these women, as they were maybe I shouldn't give the answer. I'm not going to tell you how it ends. You got to read the book. But when I finished reading this book, I was on a trip with a bunch of my students, and I was like, I had tears streaming down my face. Happy tears and sad tears, just like a mixture of emotions I was going through at the conclusion of the book. And I turned to one of my students who was on the trip with me, Rosana. She's Dominican. And I just was like, Rosanna, you have to read this book. Like, you must read this book. And so I handed it to her, and then she started reading it. And then she went home, and she was talking to her mom about all kind of different things. And it was just like a really good moment between the two of us, and we talked about that book a lot. And so right now what I'm trying to do is read that book in Spanish to challenge myself. Yay. And so in Spanish, it's En el tiempo de las mariposas. And so I figure, since I already know the story, I can try to read the chapter book and not let myself get caught up by the different words that I don't know, because I know the plot and the gist of the story already. And I'm going to try to avoid using the dictionary and just read it through and enjoy it.
Cool.
So that's an adult book that I have. And the other one I wanted to mention was Junot Diaz, The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde. I read that more recently. Everybody in this room is a fan of pretty much everything that he's ever written thus far. And that, much like Daniel Jose Older, The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde, you get somebody who is just deep in the world of fantasy, comic books, science fiction, knows the genre, current events, and just kind of covers everything. The book has won a lot of awards and very highly regarded. And then I have a copy here of Rainbow Boys by Alex Sanchez. Hold that up there. And this is, Alex Sanchez is an American-Mexican author. This book is, I don't know how far back it goes. I mean, this is what I was, and that's not a classic. I mean, it's that old. 2001. So it has been out fairly long. And there are more books in this series. I believe there's another one, Rainbow Road and stuff like that. And you have 3 young men, one who is questioning, one who is gay but he's not talking about it to anyone, and another one who is a little more out. And so the story alternates between the 3 perspectives of these young men. And this is a book that, when I worked at the public library, was circulating all the time and getting beaten up, and we would have to, make sure that we were ordering new copies of Rainbow Boys, Rainbow Road. And I think that there's a 3rd book in that series. Did you have any adult books that you wanted to recommend?
I'm trying to think. Well, you probably mentioned it about House on Mango Street.
Oh, I didn't.
You didn't? So that was probably the first book I read once I had moved to the US. I'm originally from Mexico. And I love how it's little vignettes, and it's very manageable. You can read it and then come back to it. You don't have to read it all at once. But I just love the way it's written, and I did what you were doing with the book you read in English first. I read that one in Spanish and then in English. And I still just have a lot of good memories of reading it in New York and feeling transported to the places where the author is describing her experience.
Yeah, and that one is by Sandra Cisneros.
Sandra Cisneros, yeah.
Excellent one. So I think that is it. We went through a lot. We had definitely a lot on the picture book end. I think that it's there are a lot of the titles in Club Leo are picture books and stuff like that, so we wanted to make sure that we got a lot of those in for you. But I also wanted to make sure that I stressed that we do have there are a lot of middle grade and YA titles that are in both English and Spanish. and besides just language, that they, there are a lot of stories that are available that just kind of give you an idea of the whole diaspora of experiences in Central and South America, different people just going through different challenges, and not always a story of people immigrating, sometimes a story of people, being triumphant and having fun and fantasy, just that there's a real mix of stuff out there, and we just really only touched on the kind of tip of things. There are a lot of things that I didn't get a chance to get to, so if you have any ideas or things you want to recommend, just put it in the comment section. Remember to go to scholastic.com/parents and the Raise a Reader blog to see our list, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Adios.
Adios.